Welcome to the Prophecy Club. I'm going to title this one, Nothing Can Stop It. That's actually part of one of the articles I've got for you today. Nothing can stop it. Talking about U.S., EU says are in big trouble. Big trouble coming because the BRICS and oil. So it says countries expressing their intent to join BRICS account for about 60%, let that soak in, about 60% of the known global oil and gas reserves. At the very best, this means that 60% of the world's oil sales, I hope you're listening, 60% of the world's oil sales will take place in a currency other than the US dollar once BRICS brings their new gold-backed currency to life. Now, I'm pretty sure that Hal Turner hasn't heard of Prophecy Club. He probably has not heard of Shane Warren. Probably doesn't know about Shane Warren's vision back in 2010, where he saw the dollar become worthless as leaves blowing in the wind. And the thing that starts that is when they start selling oil in some other currency other than the dollar. So it has now started. Actually, it started August 24th of 2022. But the tsunami is about to hit our shores. He goes on to say the official announcement surrounding the development of this new currency is scheduled to be made on August 22. August 22nd. Okay, so that's only a few weeks away. The currency is not created yet. That's the reason it hasn't hit our shores yet. The currency is not created yet and is not available yet. But this will change, and it will come like lightning bolt out of the blue for the United States. That's what Jason Meeks said. That's what several other people have said, that this fall of the dollar happens almost overnight. As things are right now, all oil sales around the world are done only in U.S. dollars. Well, there's been a few of those that have been not in U.S. dollars. So every country that needs oil or which sells oil conducts all of those transactions only in dollars. That means every country on the planet needs to hold physical dollars in its central bank so that the country can buy the oil and gas it needs. But once the new BRICS currency comes online, all those excess dollars being held all over the world will start to come back to the United States. Thus, the value of our currency will drop against all of those other currencies. This is a really good way to say it. I thought he worded this really well. Thus, the value of our currency will drop against all of those other currencies because nobody will want or need our dollars anymore. Now, you may be saying, okay, so, how does that affect us? He answers that. Now, bear in mind, the U.S. does not manufacture much of anything anymore. We import all of what we buy. I'm going to read that again because that's the kicker that a lot of people haven't thought of. Now, bear in mind that the U.S. does not manufacture much of anything anymore. We import all of our stuff. Now, like for example, I'm going to talk about something that I really like, but we don't offer it here at Prophecy Club, and probably not going to. There is a lantern that is called 30-day Duro or 60-day Duro. I prefer the 60-day Duro myself. Now, I do not know this for certain because I haven't actually talked to the manufacturer, but my guess is that they want to have their new idea, this new way of making a lantern that with 6 D-cell batteries turned on in normal use, it typically will last 60 days. That's amazing. So they go to about the only manufacturer in the world that can make that would be China. But the way China does business is, sure, we'll make your lantern, sure, we'll make your whatever widget is you want made. But they also then, once they get the way to do it, is they turn around and they continue making it. Maybe they'll change the outside color a little bit. Maybe they'll change the name on it a little bit. But they then start selling your idea to all of the other places around the globe. Only the difference is you don't get any royalties. You don't make any money from it. China makes all of the rest of the money from your idea. Yes, they'll make some more of them for you. They'll continue to make them for you, but they also continue to sell them. That's cheating. But that's what China does. They're probably the world's largest cheating nation, in my opinion. So that means that nobody can compete with them. And one thing I like about China is if it comes from China, you can rest assured it's about the cheapest way to manufacture it. But one of the things I don't like about things made in China is it's just about the cheapest way you can make it. A lot of things bought in China, they don't last anymore. They're junk. When I was a kid, I hated to get toys that said made in Japan because they were just junk. Today, a lot of things made in Japan are some of the best things. A lot of things made in China are the cheapest things, but they're not the best things. If you want the best, I don't know who makes it now. It used to be America made it, but now that's not the case anymore. Okay, so what's it saying? It's saying that since we have to buy almost everything from some other country other than America, that means that when the dollar starts falling, everything we buy, that includes cars, that includes houses. I mean, we don't even grow our own lumber anymore. Most of our lumber, sad to say, is imported from other nations, Canada mostly. But anyway, the point is, we're about to see things get really, really, really expensive. Now, that's why I suggest you get yourself some cornerstoneassetmetals.com gold and silver, or get yourself some wheat berries to make your own bread at josephkitchen.com. Okay, let's go on. I'm going to reread that last sentence. The U.S. does not manufacture much of anything anymore. We import everything we use. So the value of the dollar against the foreign currencies, the cost of things will be utterly skyrocketing because our currency is worth less, soon to be worthless, and less compared to other countries' currencies. We will see hyperinflation here in the United States, and he says, I suspect it could rival the Weimar Republic just before it collapsed. You remember stories, as I have, where the person in Germany, this after World War II, would take a wheelbarrow full of marks to the grocery store to buy a loaf of bread, and they said that if you left it sitting outside, you'd come back and the wheelbarrow was gone, but they would just dump the marks out on the ground because the marks were less value than the wheelbarrow. And that's coming to America. Why? Because our God is not among us. Because we've sinned, we've turned away from God in America. I mean, as one that has tried to build a church now, been going for 17 years here in the Plano, Texas area, it takes a bulldozer to drag someone into church these days and a feather to run them off. I can't tell you how many times I've said that. You do anything wrong, I'm out of here. There's no more forgiveness among Christians, congregation members. I could name names. People that hugged me and Leslie's neck and then walked out with a huff. And I was talking to my older brother up in Washington. And he said, yeah, and here's the thing. He said, if you go to them and say, why'd you leave? They don't even have a good reason. That most of the time they won't even tell you. In other words, the Christians aren't doing it right. But most people aren't even Christians. Let's go on. Once this gets done, and oil sales begin in the new BRICS currency, the United States will economically collapse and nothing can stop it. What we're saying is the dollar is going to die, and he says nothing can stop it. Now I'm going to show you another article in just a second that uses almost the same words, nothing can stop it. HalTurnerRadioShow.com goes on to say, I smell a world war coming. Look, we've known this since 1984. So I suggest you go to CornerstoneAssetMetals.com. I'd love to be able to tell you everybody needs to buy gold and silver. But I can't give financial advice. But these guys can. They're Christians. They're prophecy students. Most of them follow the Prophecy Club, and they love Prophecy Club people to call. They say, because you guys know what's going on. Everybody else we have to educate. We love Prophecy Club people because they understand. We don't have to teach them. We don't have to retrain them. CornerstoneAssetMetals.com. There's going to come a time when we all, including myself, wish we had some more gold and silver. Nothing is over. Okay, let me back up. See where it says here, nothing can stop it? And I thought it was very interesting that a whole different article, different outfit, says almost the same words. Nothing is over. One says nothing can stop it. What's he talking about? Fall of the dollar. Inflation is about to come back with a vengeance. First, let's be clear that there are 4 types of inflation: creeping, walking, galloping, and hyperinflation. We also should distinguish between monetary inflation and price inflation because they are not always directly related. Usually they are, but events outside of money printing can also cause prices to go up. He says if we calculate CPI according to the same methods used during the stagflationary crisis of the 1980s, real inflation has been in the double digits for the past couple of years. This constitutes galloping inflation. So he says our dollar is heading toward being worthless, the same thing that the other guy said. This constitutes galloping inflation, a very dangerous condition that can lead to a depression event. I remember my parents talking about the Great Depression. They said there were no jobs, there was no food, and a lot of people were starving to death. I mean, they were living on crickets. The primary cause was tens of trillions of dollars of monetary stimulus created by the Federal Reserve. Let me just say, if you go back, matter of fact, we have several DVDs at watchprophecyclub.com that explain this. And that's the reason I'd recommend you go to watchprophecyclub.com. Watch them, several of them. They explain the Federal Reserve. Okay, so the Federal Reserve is not federal, and it has almost maybe no gold reserves. It is a private banking corporation that tricked America into making it the way that we print our money. We gave them permission to print our money back in 1913. And it was all done kind of after everybody was closed and gone home, and they got a bunch of just enough senators in to sign and make this thing law. And it was a big trick of the devil. Federal Reserve, owned and controlled by the devil. Do not think it has anything to do with the government. And it is amazing to me that not one politician, not one, will stand up and tell people the truth about the Federal Reserve, because they know the people that own and control the Federal Reserve, one of the 13 Illuminati bloodlines, they know that these people own and control the world, especially America. And they have done this. Why? Because they want to put their man, the Antichrist, on the throne. I keep saying that. The primary cause was tens of trillions of dollars in monetary stimulus. In other words, they printed money. Let me give you an example. I heard this years ago, and this helped me to understand inflation. Perhaps it'll help you. Okay, so let's say that you and all of the other Prophecy Club folks, all good Christians, and let's say we all happen to be living on a pretty large island. And years ago, our forefathers came up with a way for us to buy and trade. And that was, we found this one particular beach that had seashells on it. And whatever was in the seashell died centuries ago, so there's not going to be any more seashells. So we decided that these would be our medium of exchange. And so everything was going along great because we only had so many seashells. And so we could buy and sell and trade these seashells. But then a big boat landed, and they started laughing at us. We've got a boat full of these seashells. Here you go. But they handed them out only to the most powerful and some of the people that now had become very evil. And so now there used to be, let's say, 100,000 seashells that everybody traded with. but there was about 200,000 seashells on the boat. Now all of a sudden we have 3 times as many seashells on the island. What does that mean? Well, for a while it means everybody can buy just about everything they want. But the problem is so many seashells are out there to where now the value of those seashells starts dropping. Now, how much does it drop by? A third? No. A half? No. How many more seashells landed on the island? 200,000 when there was only 100,000 before. So that means the value of the seashells will drop down to about 30% of the value that they used to have. That's what the Federal Reserve has done to America over the years. They keep printing money. I remember when I was a child, my mom gave me 2 quarters every day to go to lunch. That bought me a hamburger, fries, and a Coke every day, and it did it from early days of elementary through high school. Today, I can go to that same Whataburger. I can order the same hamburger, fries, and a Coke. Today, it costs me about $12. I actually went to them and I said, what does it cost to buy hamburger, fries, and a Coke? $12. What used to cost 50 cents. Now, what happened? The Federal Reserve kept printing their money that they sell back to the United States. So consequently, each year, the value of our dollar went down, down, down. Now, what we're saying is, this is about what it's about to say here is, and they've been printing them like, well, of course, these days, they don't have to even print them. These days, they just enter it into a computer with a different digit. Now, let's go on with the article. This epic or too big to fail stimulus created an avalanche effect in which economic weaknesses accumulated like sheets of ice on a mountainside. The final straw was the COVID lockdowns and the $8 trillion plus in stimulus package pumped directly into the system. Okay, that's the boat landing with 200,000 more seashells on it. So the Federal Reserve just started giving away money. That was the stimulus. To give you a sense of how bad the situation is, we can look at the Fed's M2 money supply, parenthesis, they stopped reporting the more complete M3 money supply right before the crash of 2008. In other words, they did not want to tell everybody how much new money they're flooding into the system. But again, they're the Federal Reserve, they're not part of the government. They're an international, private-owned bank that controls our money. According to the M2, the amount of dollars in circulation jumped by around 40% in the span of only 2 years. Did you catch that? So what they did was, it would be like the boat first landing, where there was 100,000 seashells, but now by 40%. Let's see, what would that take? Because if it doubled it, then it would only go down by about 50%. So that meant enough new seashells were introduced onto the island to where now the value of the dollar will drop by 40%. Well, I guess down by 60%. Here's a picture of what happened. Now, let me explain. Okay, so this is the amount of money that was in circulation. 1960, 70, 80, 90, 2000, 210. Already, when it goes from here to here, that means the money is now worth half as much, half as much, half as much. So every time you see it doubling, it lowers the value by 50%. Now look out here. That means that today you pay $12 for what back in my childhood was 2 quarters. So this is what's happened, and there's even worse news. There have been too many dollars chasing too few goods and services. Thus, prices rise dramatically, with the cost of necessities increasing by 25 to 50%, and that's only the last few years. Think about that for a moment. It now costs us 25 to 50% more per year. It didn't say over 10 years, per year, to live than it did before 2020, and it's not over by a long shot. Enter Biden's scheme of dumping America's strategic oil reserves on the market to artificially bring down CPI. Okay, now let me just go back to our island example. Here's what it would be like. It would be like, well, in addition to the one boat that landed on the island, all of a sudden they discovered a way to use some of the island resources to make some more of their own seashells themselves. But instead, they started pulling the seashells out of the market, so that artificially made the value of the seashells more valuable. But it didn't really. That's what selling this oil from the strategic reserves did. That put money back into the supply that really wasn't there. It goes on to say energy prices affect almost all other aspects of the CPI index, and when energy costs fall by him selling the reserve oil, this makes it seem like inflation has been tamed. So it's another way Biden hurt America. The problem is that it's just a short-term solution that's really not a solution. They really call it a fraud. Biden has run out of reserves. Okay, so our strategic petroleum oil reserves are gone. That's what the article says, gone. What are they for? They're in case America gets into a war, so we have our own oil and we don't need to buy it abroad. It's specifically for a war. So what he's done is now sent all of our war materials to Ukraine, all of our bullets, all of our missiles, just about according to him. He says we're almost out. We're also out of oil, and now our dollar's about to be worthless. So our nation is on the precipice of going over the cliff and dying. The problem is that it's a short-term fraud. Biden's run out of reserves to dilute the market, and the cost of refilling them is going to be exponentially higher. That is why you now see gas prices rising again, and they will probably keep rising through the rest of the year. This is a picture of what we're talking about. This is the strategic petroleum oil reserves. This is how much oil was actually in our emergency war chest for war. And as you can see, what happened in the Trump years, which would be right here, Trump filled them up even more. Biden has got rid of almost all of them. We're almost empty. In other words, perfect time for Russia to attack when we don't have the bullets, the missiles. We don't have the wherewithal to defend ourselves. For example, Russia is now officially and aggressively shutting down Ukraine's wheat and grain exports. I've told you. You need to go to josephkitchen.com. You need to get yourself some wheat berries and the wherewithal to make yourself your own homemade whole wheat bread, which is what fed the world for some 7 years during the days of Joseph the Pyramids. Russia is now officially and aggressively shutting down Ukraine's wheat and grain exports, just like one of the newspaper headlines prophesied would happen, which is going to cause another price spike in wheat and all foods that use wheat. I hope you're getting this. India just shut down a major export of rice to protect their domestic supply. Just covered that, a few days ago. Again, my suggestion, go to josephkitchen.com. Look, most of these places, $9,000, $10,000 to feed one person for a year. You can do it at Joseph Kitchen for about $1,000 per person. Now, you don't have to wait until an emergency hits. I don't recommend you do. I recommend you start making your own bread now to reduce your cost of food. Start eating more bread. It's lowered my blood pressure and my cholesterol, and I love it. Okay, let's go on. And there's an overall trend of foreign creditors quietly dumping the U.S. dollar. Oh, they're not even quietly. They're massively. They're en masse dumping the dollar like crazy. I covered that a couple of days ago. The U.S. dollar is a world reserve currency. All those dollars will eventually make their way back to the U.S., meaning an even larger money supply. In other words, now there's not one, but there's 2 or 3 boats that have now landed on the island. And so now you used to have 2 quarters to buy your lunch. Now it's up to 12, but by the time this happens, how'd you like to be buying $20 for a hamburger? $30 for a hamburger? How'd you like to go to fill up your car and it's $25 a gallon? $30 a gallon. That's what we're talking about. Circulating, or can you even get it? Money supply circulating domestically with higher inflation as a result. He says, I would argue that the inflation is not done, and prophecies agree with him. with us yet, and that the Fed will have to hike a few more times to suppress it in the short term. In the long term, the viability of the U.S. dollar is the issue. In other words, in the long term, the dollar is going to die, just like Shane Warren was told back in 2010. And this mouth has been trying to tell you since 2012. So, I've been talking about it for 11 years. You got to start getting ready. And I suggest this. Go to josephkitchen.com to get food. Cornerstone Asset Metals to get precious metals. EMP Shield, use the promo code PROPHECY, get you a $50 discount. prophecyclub.com for your DVDs, for your books, also to join and become a member of the Prophecy Club, $9.90 a month or more. And also go to watchprophecyclub.com if you want to watch some 300 DVDs that we made over 25 years. A lot of this stuff you're hearing now, we made DVDs on it 20, 25 years ago. Go visit watchprophecyclub.com. Go check it out. Let's talk about Joseph Kitchen. I actually cooked this loaf of bread you're seeing here. Takes me about 10 minutes to put the ingredients together, put it into a bread machine, push a button, 2 hours, 20 minutes later, I get a loaf of bread out like that. Now, if you cut that loaf of bread that weighs about 3 pounds, the loaves you get in the store have most of the good stuff removed. The loaves you get in the store are about a pound. That's 3 pounds because it's got the good stuff still in it. Cut that into 14 slices, and if I eat a slice in the morning and the afternoon, I'm satisfied. So on that basis, one loaf can sustain, I didn't say it's everything we want, can sustain one person for a week. Based upon that, it'll get you excellent nutrition. It tastes good, long storage life, 10 minutes to combine the ingredients, 2 hours, 20 minutes to make it. Other wheat that you order arrives in paper bags, which means bugs, rice, humidity can get a hold of it and ruin it. But at Joseph Kitchen, they send it out in 100 mil thick buckets. Gives you long shelf life. It's stackable. There's some nitrogen infuses that hopefully gives it much longer shelf life, kills bugs and things like that. Easily resealable, keep in a climate-controlled area. And they have it in stock. This is an actual picture of part of the warehouse. Here's another picture of these. Actually, each one of those boxes holds 2,500 pounds of wheat. And I think they've got 54 of those boxes, a bunch of them. So Joseph's Kitchen can ship it to you right now. You go to most of these places, they say out of stock. So here's what you want to do. Everybody needs to get a machine package. These are the things that you need to grind the wheat berries. Put them into a grinder. 30 seconds later, you have flour. You put that into the bread machine along with 6 other ingredients. Push a button. 2 hours, 20 minutes later, you have a nice hot loaf of whole wheat bread. Then you have to decide how much food you want. You want food 2 people 1 year, 4 people 1 year, 6 people 1 year. And if you want to make certain you have it when the electricity goes down, you can also get yourself a solar generator, all at josephskitchen.com. josephskitchen.com. I suggest you not only go to prophecyclub.com, you not only want to just get this book here, which is what we're talking about today, God's Warnings to America. One's $20, but don't get one. Get 5 for $30. That's a better deal. That way you got 4 to give away your friends. Because you start reading this, you're going to want to give it away to other people. Now, here's a better deal. So I've written 4 of these books. I wrote this one. I wrote Daniel, Tribulation Secrets of Daniel, and Miss the Mark, and also Understand Bible Prophecy, Secret Door. I compiled this one. These are prophecies that I gathered from these people, though I think there's only one from me. So, I didn't write it. I just compiled it, printed it, paid for it to be printed so that you can have a copy of it. However, what the very, very best deal, I think maybe the best we ever had at the Prophecy Club in 30 years, this one is How Pre-Trib Won. This one is explaining to you how the truth beat the lie. How is it that the truth of the fact that there's not a pre-trib rapture lost the match and everybody believes there's going to be a pre-trib rapture? How did that happen? And then I also go in and give you the scriptures very plainly and simply, lay it out for you, and I show you why there's not going to be a pre-trib rapture. Then this book is the Tribulation Secrets in Daniel. It's where I take verse by verse part of Daniel. Don't need the whole book. This is the part of Daniel that as a last days Christian, you need to know and understand. Then Miss the Mark. This has actually turned out to be a very, very popular book because the whole point is to convince people not to take the mark of the beast. Now, Secret Door to Understand Bible Prophecy, this one is, it's not complicated, but it's deep. This is teaching you how to understand Bible prophecy. Whereas Miss the Mark, this is for the person that maybe not even a Christian. They're certainly not a prophecy student. They probably don't know much about the Bible at all. But this one is a book that you hand to someone. You don't know about the mark of the beast? Well, here, read this. And if they'll read the first page or two, they won't put it down. They'll read the whole thing. And if they read the whole thing, whatever happens, they will not take that mark of the beast. And it has pictures of what the mark of the beast actually looks like. And as a matter of fact, we're in the process of getting it also translated into Spanish. Terry Saka, Cornerstone, assetmetals.com. The world seems to be falling apart financially. Why should they call Cornerstone assetmetals.com today?
Well, the FDIC insurance fund is now empty. Not only is it empty, it's at zero. So now all bank bailouts are going to have to come from taxpayers. This could result in trillions of new currency notes being printed. The more they print, the more inflation we're going to have, potentially hyperinflation, and we need to protect ourselves away from that dollar.
Cornerstone assetmetals.com. Go online or give them a call at 888-747-3309. Cornerstone assetmetals.com. You don't have to get anything today. Just give them a call and say, hey, here's my situation. What do you suggest?